Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live, and tonight we're delighted to be joined by Kgomotso Lekola, who is the CEO and founder of BT Industrial. Kgomotso saw a gap in the market for high-quality, heavy-duty plastic pipes and seized the opportunity to create a successful manufacturing company. Now, his keen business acumen and innovative approach to solving industry needs have helped make BT Industrial a leading supplier of pipes for a wide range of sectors, including agriculture, bulk water infrastructure, as well as construction. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Good evening. Thank you.
I mean, this is incredible innovation, and that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's about innovation, and it's about problem solving as well. And having a successful business, of course, we want to know, where did the inspiration come from starting your company, and why? How did you find the gap in the market when it comes to the heavy duty plastic pipes?
So I suppose, it's that old story of the iceberg, right? So you just see the tip at the top, whereas, at the bottom, below the surface, it's quite big. I've been in business for a very long time, and the plastic piping business only came about 7 years ago. It wasn't really about piping per se. We had a very successful weather risk management business, which we grew throughout the continent, Southeast Asia, and a little bit of Australia. You know those SMSs that you get when there's a hailstorm? Yeah, that's one of our innovations. Then in 2017, we did a transaction, we sold that business, and then the question was, how do we meaningfully participate in the long-term developmental trajectory, not only of South Africa, but of the continent as well? And the question then was, then we need to participate in somehow owning and controlling the means of production. You have to produce something meaningful. And water was an obvious choice. Why? You know the story of the city of Rome. It was home to 1 million citizens 2,000 years ago, largely because of the aqueducts. They could bring in fresh water into the city, and they could take out sewage. It allowed the development of Rome. So the thinking that we had when we went into water was to say, water is an essential ingredient to development. As our cities become bigger, as our towns become bigger, we have to be able to bring in fresh water. And we need to be able to take out sewage. That's really what the genesis of the idea was about. Just taking cognizance of where our continent was, taking cognizance of where our country was, and then saying, how do we meaningfully participate? We didn't just want to design systems and install systems. We wanted to be the people manufacturing these essential components, the modern aqueducts, which are pipes.
Thank you for sharing your entrepreneurial journey. I think it's so exciting and so inspiring to see where you've started to where you are now. And thank you for the innovation in sharing when it's going to storm. I know it saves a lot of people on a lot of insurance. So thank you for that. That's very, very cool. It's very interesting to see, the transitions you've made in your entrepreneurial journey. And these are the kind of stories we like to tell on the show, because you have been through so many different changes in terms of your entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's inspiring for other people to see, is that your path is not always straightforward. It sometimes has curves and changes, and perhaps also your path leads you into the right direction
Sometimes
in where you're
it's just
supposed to.
about survival.
Exactly, and sometimes it's just about survival, but that's entrepreneurship. And speaking about that, it's not an easy one at all.
No.
I mean, sometimes it's easier to stick to your 9 to 5, but that doesn't mean that that's where you belong and where you should stay, especially considering that we live in a country that is plagued by unemployment. We need more people to be innovators. We need more people to have more of an entrepreneurial mindset. From your experience in business, what would you say are your keys to success, if you could share with us?
So I don't agree with the statement, by the way. A lot of people believe that entrepreneurship is a solution to joblessness. A lot of people believe that entrepreneurship is an alternative that everybody should have. I don't agree. I love football, right? I really, really love football. I watch it, I go to the game, but I can't play. So I will never be a footballer. Right. Similarly, entrepreneurship, it's not for everybody. It really isn't. Some people are great scientists. They belong in laboratories, discovering things, making things. Others are great runners, others are great accountants, and others are great entrepreneurs. It's really tough. You need to be able to lose 12 rounds in a boxing match, and on the 13th round, get up again. And it's to many, it's soul destroying. I think you'll remember the famous tweets, midnight tweets that Elon Musk used to post back in 2018, as many people believed at the time he was having an emotional meltdown. So I don't necessarily think it's for everybody. I think it's for some people who somehow have the stamina or the hunger or the talent or whatever the circumstances that push them to only have that as an option. And I'm one of those people. I really don't think that it's something that you're necessarily, maybe you can train to become good at it, maybe, but I think it's a burning desire that you have inside you. And if you're true to yourself and you respond to that burning desire, you'll be able to stand up 11 times after taking 10 knockouts. So it's not a pretty answer, right? It's not what you normally hear, what people talk about, but it's at least based on my experience and my views.
I mean, that's exactly what we want to hear. We want to hear truth from perspective and from experience. And from your years of experience, of course, you have that kind of knowledge behind the resilience that it takes to be in entrepreneurship and consistently stay there. And I think the unique perspective that you've brought to the show this evening perhaps also answers that question as to why so many SMMEs fail within the first year. And I think, yes, we are looking at entrepreneurship as, you know, this beacon of hope for unemployment. But I think you've brought a really unique perspective in the sense that you've got to think about whether you have the resilience and, like you said, that burning desire to continue on despite the many challenges that you will face along the way. What I want to also ask you about is, we know we are on the verge of a water crisis in South Africa, and you spoke about how important water is in terms of adding fuel to the city, and, you know, the way Rome was built, and how, you know, the water in the city added to its value and added to its stature as well. We are living in a country where water is consistently becoming an issue. And a lot of the conversations we've had on the show with people who are in the water industry complain about, you know, things like the fact that maybe we're not as water scarce as we think, but it's a maintenance issue. What are your thoughts on the water crisis in South Africa, and what can we do to really combat this issue of maintenance, the quality of products that we are using in terms of maintaining the pipes that we do have running in and out of the city? And then more importantly, we're water scarce in so many parts of South Africa. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so maybe two critical points there. So the city of Rome, many people believe, many historians believe, the ultimate demise of Rome was when the water was no longer coming in and the sewage going out, right? And then there's other hypotheses that go around the level of salination, salt, that ultimately was in the water, which made it impossible for Roman citizens to consume the water. But the point is, the rise of Rome can be directly attributed to the excellent engineering of bringing in water. And the demise has a lot to do with the inability to actually get the water to the people. So that analogy is so important in thinking through the challenges that we have in South Africa. If we are not able to maintain sufficient levels of fresh water getting to our people, we're not going to be able to fuel development. It's not going to happen. You must understand, to produce electricity, you need water. To do anything,
you need water.
You need water, right? So to your more bigger question, are we water scarce? We are. Okay, South Africa, Africa in general, is arid. So we don't have as much water as other parts of the world. Having said so, though, the numbers tell us that about 40% of the water that gets to your home, so of the water that gets to your home, about 40% is lost in transmission, meaning that the pipes are leaky, the systems are not working. So we hear numbers somewhere around 10, 15, 20 trillion rand is required to adequately maintain the infrastructure. And those are scary numbers, right? That's the kind of number that makes you not want to wake up in the morning. How we address that manifestly is what we have done, for example, for one of our customers, one of the shopping malls here in Sandton, at the zone, where we have a grey water treatment plant in the shopping mall. So about 75% of the water that is expelled by a shopping mall is actually grey water from restaurants, kitchens, washing hands, and so on. That water can be treated on site and repurposed, as opposed to being flushed back into the sewer system. When you do that, by our calculations, if we managed to install a sufficient number of grey water treatment systems in malls, we could save the infrastructure equivalent of about 4 billion rand in terms of making more water available for other uses. So that's, at least as a business, how we're tackling some of the issues that relate to the scarcity of water.
Now, that's incredibly innovative. Thank you for sharing that with us. I didn't even know that that kind of technology existed. But like you said, these are the kind of innovations that are going to save us when it comes to the water issue that we are having. And that kind of innovation is the thing we need to be seeing more implemented. Thank you for sharing that. That was very interesting to learn. Can you talk to us about how you feel the business landscape has changed in South Africa? Perhaps also how it might have impacted you as a business owner. I know you spoke about the difficulty that comes with being an entrepreneur, particularly being an entrepreneur in a landscape such as South Africa. Are you able to share with us?
Yeah, so in fact, this morning I was speaking at the CSIR. One of the very interesting statistics is this. In 1999, we had about 700 listed companies on the JSE, all the boards combined. Just now, we have about just under 300. So that tells you something. You compare to the US, they had about 154 IPOs last year. In Europe, about 62 IPOs last year. So what you're seeing there is that, for whatever reason, Europe and America are building new high growth companies that they're listing. And for whatever reason, we are reducing the number of high growth businesses. So there's something very serious going on there that that is not taking us where we would like to go. In fact, interestingly enough, the US, America, has about twice the number of IPOs per capita compared to the EU. So it's also very interesting. Why is America leading in the conception and growth of these high growth companies at a rate higher than Europe? The difference cannot be attributed to levels of education. No, it cannot be attributed to the level of money available in the economy to invest. No, there's other causal factors that have a lot to do with culture. Okay, so how do you deal with failure? To what extent do you punish a business that has failed versus looking at them saying, at least they know what not to do next time. All right. There's those cultural differences. And then there's also a significant difference in the regulatory frameworks within the EU versus the USA. And then when you come and you look at South Africa, you see that, at least we hypothesize, that the level of regulation, just the general business environment, does not lend itself to creating those high growth businesses, at least not at the same rate. More pertinently, as a manufacturer, which we are, things like load shedding, they absolutely decimate business. I mean, a single day of load shedding erases 12 days of profit. 2 days of load shedding erases an entire month's worth of profit. And these things eventually trickle down and filter through, and you see them on the JSE, for instance, with the number of companies reducing. The other factor where you will see this is level of employment. The other factor you will see is tax collection rates, budget deficits. So all of these things have a feedback loop into each other, and you see the indications of these things there. So the business environment in South Africa, in my view, is very tough, given some of those macro factors. But obviously, there's also, wherever you have difficulty, you have opportunity. But the numbers don't tell a good story. And I think there's a lot that we as South Africans need to do to try and turn our country onto the right path.
Kgomotso, thank you so much for joining us this evening, as well as sharing your very honest feedback in terms of what it actually takes to be an entrepreneur. And these are the kind of open conversations we want to be having on the show, and want to also be exposing to our viewers as well. Because it's lovely to talk about the pretty things and the things that are easy to talk about, but we also have to get down to the nitty-gritty details of what it actually entails being a business in South Africa, the unique challenges that it presents, as well as whether you have the capability and the resilience to actually withstand and withhold and keep your business flourishing sustainably in a country like South Africa and in a global world that we live in. And thank you for also sharing with us, your unique perspectives, as well as your innovations that you've been able to work with, as well as what you've been able to offer your clients as well. Thank you so much. This has been very insightful.
Thank you.
Viewers at home, that was Kgomotso. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. These are the kinds of, kind of transparent conversations we need to have when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I do hope that you took away some motivation and inspiration from our conversation this evening, as well as perhaps enlightening, or rather igniting that burning fire within you to kind of solve a lot of issues that we are having in South Africa. So if you do have that spirit, I hope this conversation did inspire you further. But on that note, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.